Today, we're going to unpack a story that, believe it or not, shapes your life every single workday. It's the story of management. We're going to see how we went from seeing people as cogs in a machine to, well, to how we think about work today. Let's dig in.
You know the feeling, right? You've been on that amazing team where everything just clicks, and you've probably been on a team that, well, doesn't. So what's the secret sauce? What makes one group soar and another one stumble? This is the exact puzzle that people have been trying to solve for over a century, and their journey is our story today.
To get it, we have to rewind the clock to the factory floor, early 1900s. Managers had this massive headache called soldering. And no, it has nothing to do with metal. It was this unspoken agreement among workers to deliberately work slow. The thinking was, hey, if we work too fast, they'll just fire some of us. So everyone just coasted. It was inefficient, and it drove one man absolutely crazy.
So this guy comes along with a pretty radical idea. He said, stop guessing, stop using these old-fashioned traditions. He argued that managing people should be a science, just like physics or chemistry. You could engineer a workplace for peak performance the same way you'd engineer a steam engine.
And this was his blueprint. Frederick W. Taylor, the father of what he called scientific management. His plan had four main parts. First, study every single task, every shovelful of coal, every turn of a wrench, to find the one best way to do it. Second, don't just hire anyone. Scientifically pick the perfect person for that one job. Third, make sure the workers actually follow the science. But that fourth one, that was the real bombshell. Management does all the thinking and planning. Workers just execute. Period.
And this quote right here, it tells you everything you need to know about his worldview. To him, a workplace wasn't a community. It was a flawed system. And he believed you could fix it with laws and principles, stamping out all the messy human parts to get to a kind of perfect mechanical efficiency.
So, did it work? Oh yeah, it worked. Big time. The results were just mind-blowing. In his most famous experiments, he showed that by applying his principles to something as simple as shoveling, he could boost productivity by 300 to 400%. That's not an improvement, that's a revolution.
And the impact was huge. Complex, skilled jobs got broken down into tiny, mindless, repetitive tasks. Managers did the thinking, workers did the doing. Efficiency went through the roof, but it came at a price. The worker lost all autonomy. You really did become just a cog in a huge industrial machine.
Okay, so problem solved, right? Factories are humming, everything's efficient. But hold on, something was wrong. The human element just wasn't fitting into the perfect scientific model. Workers were still unhappy. There's clearly a ghost in the machine that the stopwatch in the rulebook couldn't explain.
And what happened next is one of those fantastic accidents of history. It was a surprise discovery that would kick off a whole new way of thinking, a shift from the mechanics of the work to the mind of the worker.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1924 at this huge factory called the Hawthorne Works. A team of engineers set up a simple, logical experiment. Their hypothesis, better lighting will make people work harder. Makes sense, right? It was a classic scientific management kind of test. But the results were just weird. First, they made the lights brighter for the test group, and yep, productivity shot up. Great. But then they turned the lights back down, and productivity went up again. Confused, they dimmed the lights until it was as dark as moonlight, and productivity still went up. The engineers were totally stumped. What on earth was going on? And this is when the light bulb, pardon the pun, really went on. They stumbled upon what we now call the Hawthorne effect. It was never about the lights. It was about the attention. For the very first time, someone was asking these workers for their input, showing them that they mattered. And that feeling of being seen and valued was more powerful than any physical change you could make to their environment. This one accidental finding launched a whole new movement, the Human Relations School. And its conclusions turned the old science-based ideas completely upside down. It turns out the social pressure from your coworkers, that's often a bigger deal than what the manager says. Simple things like respect and attention, they can motivate people more than money. And this was the big one. people aren't just rational economic men hunting for a paycheck. We are social men, driven by a need to belong.
So now we have these two completely opposite ways of looking at people. A guy named Douglas McGregor summed it up perfectly later with his Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X is the old-school scientific management view. People are basically lazy and you have to force them to work. Theory Y is the new human relations view. People actually want to do a good job and can be trusted. And this clash between X and Y is pretty much the central debate in management to this very day. So, who won? Was it the cold, hard science of Theory X or the warm, fuzzy psychology of Theory Y? Well, the modern answer is a bit more, nuanced. It turns out neither one is always right. And that brings us to what's called the contingency approach. It's a fancy name for a pretty simple idea. There is no one best way to manage. The right answer is always, it depends. It depends on the task, the people, the situation. Think about it. Managing a fire crew in a burning building probably requires a direct, top-down, Theory X style. But trying to use that same style with a team of artists creating a new video game, it would be an absolute disaster. You'd need a collaborative, trusting, Theory Y approach. So this chart really lays out the whole journey for us. We started in the classical era, seeing workers as rational machines where rules and efficiency were king. Then, the human relations era made us realize people were social creatures, and morale was the key. And that brings us to today, the contingency era, where we see people as complex individuals, and we know the real secret is just finding the right fit for the right situation. Okay, so that's over 100 years of management history. But the real question is, why should you care? How does this apply to you right now? Let's bring it all home. I want you to really think about your job. Your boss, your team, your company. Is it built on the Theory X idea that you need to be watched and controlled? Or is it built on the Theory Y idea that you can be trusted to do great things? The answer to that one question tells you everything. It decodes the secret logic, the invisible philosophy that shapes your entire workday.